What's up, YouTube? It's your boy, the Blu-ray Bandit. Today we're going to talk about 25 more valuable Blu-ray titles you might actually find out in the wild. Let's go. Welcome back. We're going to talk Blu-rays again today, specifically surprisingly valuable Blu-rays. I did a video like this about a month ago that ran down 25 valuable Blu-rays you might actually find at a pawn shop or a thrift store or garage sale, just somewhere out in the wild. If you haven't seen that video, you can find it right there, or you can find a link to it down in the description. This is another 25 titles you should be on the lookout for when hunting for Blu-rays out in the wild. Just a reminder that this is not a list of the most valuable Blu-rays. There are plenty of videos like that out on YouTube. Just do a quick search. You won't see any boutique Blu-rays on this list. You won't see any Kino Lorber or Criterion titles, no Vinegar Syndrome or Shout Factory or Arrow titles. The chances of you finding those out in the wild are pretty slim, as they are sold directly to collectors, who rarely resell them anywhere but sites like eBay. No, this is a list of titles that were released by major studios that for one reason or another have held and gained in value over time that might have been resold to a secondhand source somewhere down the line. Just an update since my last video, one of the 25 valuable titles featured in that video, I have since been able to find. This is Cruel Intentions. I found it for $2 at a garage sale. This is just a reminder that these titles are out there, but only if you hunt them. Just a little bit of motivation, let's jump into it. We're going to use eBay sold listings for this. I found that eBay sold listings are easily the best way to find the general market value of a Blu-ray. And that's because they tell you exactly what titles have recently sold for on the marketplace. So let's jump into our first title and see what it's worth. First up, we've got Peggy Sue Got Married, a movie from the 80s with a Blu-ray release in 2013. As you can see, these are the sold listings. You can see this sold on May 15th. It was a pre-owned copy of the Blu-ray, and it sold for $65. Here's another copy. This one was brand new, somehow fetched $25. Here's another one sold May 6th for $109. This one was also brand new. Here's another used copy that sold for $60. Another used copy for $84, and another brand new for $45. I don't remember much about this movie. I know I've seen it, but none of that matters. The point is, it's valuable, so if you see it, pick it up. Next up is 54, the Director's Cut. This movie was released in the late 90s, but had a Blu-ray release in 2016 from Lionsgate. It's well out of print. The movie stars Ryan Phillippe and Mike Myers. It's the story of the legendary nightclub in New York, Studio 54. It's not a great movie, but it has a little bit of a cult following. That's why the price is decently high on this one. You can see as recently as June 9th, one went for $47. Here's another used copy for $60, another for $59, another for $67, $63, another pre-owned copy for $75. I've never actually seen this one out in the wild, but it did get a major studio release, and it was sold in major brick and mortar stores. So it's got to be out there. If you found it, let me know in the comments. I'm on the hunt for it. Next, we have Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back, a Kevin Smith movie from the early 2000s with a Blu-ray release in 2011. Now, this title has been out of print for quite a while, but it's since seen re-release, so I'm not 100% sure that these prices are going to hold for very long. If you have a copy of these, I suggest you resell it. I personally picked up a triple pack of this title, Clerks, and Mallrats, all on one disc from Amazon for roughly $10. So if you just want the movie, there's no point in keeping this out of print version of it at this point. You can see as early as June 9th, a copy sold for $23. Here's a copy that sold with the reboot movie for $25. And here's one that sold in April with a best offer. Original asking price, $30. I recently found a copy of it in the wild. I'll be reselling it as fast as I possibly can. If you have one of these, go ahead and resell it, get yourself the triple pack, and use the extra money to buy more titles you'd like to keep for your collection. Next, we have Johnny Mnemonic, a mid-90s movie that got a Blu-ray release in 2011. This is an interesting pre-Matrix Keanu Reeves movie. It's not a great movie, but a fun one, especially if you don't mind a little bit of 90s special effects cheese. We can see here one sold recently for $40, recently for $39, for $40, for $49, for $44, roughly in the $40 range. You see this one on the shelves, pick it up. Next, we have an early film from director Peter Jackson, who went on to direct the Lord of the Rings trilogy and the Hobbit trilogy, but who cares about that? He directed the Lord of the Rings trilogy. This is a movie he made between his horror roots and Lord of the Rings. This one was released in 1994, and it's called Heavenly Creatures. It stars Kate Winslet. You can see it recently went for $50, $49, $32, $40. Here's one that was new and sealed that sold for $159. Pretty crazy. There's a very slim chance you'll find any of these new and sealed out in the wild, but it is possible. And if you score a copy like Heavenly Creatures, you never know what you might get for it. Next up, we have To Live and Die in LA. This is a drama from director William Friedkin. There's actually two versions of this out there. There's a Shout Factory release and a release from 2011 that was released by MGM Studios. We're looking specifically for the MGM Studios release with this cover. This title recently sold for $28. This is the Shout Factory version, so we're going to skip that. This copy sold for $34, $27, $34, $28. Here's a copy that sold on auction for $8.50. Somebody grabbed a deal on that one. It's an interesting drama, a little bit of a cult film at this point. I've been able to find a copy of this out at a pawn shop. I think I paid $2.50 for it, roughly. At the time, I didn't know exactly what it was worth, and I'm pretty sure I've since seen other copies of it floating around. It wasn't until I started researching this video that I realized this title actually has value. So from now on, if I come across it again, I'm gonna grab it, and you should too. Casino Royale. This is a James Bond movie from the 60s that got a Blu-ray release in 2011. Here's a brand new sealed copy for $59. Here's pre-owned for $52. Here's the disc only for $40. Another pre-owned on auction for $43, pre-owned for $50, pre-owned for $49. This seems to be one of the only individual James Bond titles that fetches a decent price. So keep your eyes out for it. It's out there. Next up, The Fall, a Tarsum Singh movie. Strange movie, but one that is very visually interesting. You can see this title recently sold for $79, $96, $76. There's a former rental that sold for $50, another for $90, another for $73. I'm pretty sure I've seen this one on the shelf and passed it by without giving it a scan. I will not be making that mistake again. Next up, Detroit Rock City, a fun coming-of-age comedy. This movie was released in the late 90s and got a Blu-ray release in 2015. I've actually found this one on the shelf of a pawn shop before. I resold it for roughly what we're seeing on eBay right now. Here's one sold June 9th, $54, $56, $53, $40, $45, $40, $59, $56. I can tell you this one's out there. Go get it. Joyride, an early 2000s horror movie that got a Blu-ray release in 2013. This is an early Paul Walker film. There's only 2 comps for it on eBay right now. Both of them are pre-owned. One sold for $25. The other sold for $54.99 and has a little card on the cover. I know this one is out there because I was able to find it in a pawn shop. I think I paid $2 for this or so. It's a fun movie that holds a decent value. Next, we've got Cocoon from 1985. This 80s movie saw Blu-ray release in 2010 from 20th Century Fox. This is one of my favorites. It's a Wilford Brimley movie. Maybe the only movie of his that I would say I'm a fan of. Although it's not like I've seen a bunch of them either. But this is an interesting one. It's a sci-fi movie that centers around elderly people. It's a weird one. If you haven't seen it, check it out. It's worth a watch. The Blu-ray release recently sold for $32, $32, $29, $32, $31, $42. Roughly $30 to $40 for this one. I'm still on the hunt for it, but I'll find it eventually. Oh yes, I will. Next up, My Super Ex-Girlfriend. This is a mid-2000s movie that saw Blu-ray release in 2013. There's really only one comp on eBay for this one. It was a best offer. Asking price started at $74. I really have no idea what this title is worth. I know it's pretty hard to find out in the wild, so this is probably your least likely to come across. But if you find it, pick it up, throw it on eBay, ask for a ridiculous price, and you never know what might happen. Next is the original Dawn of the Dead from director George Romero, a horror classic. This is the 2007 Blu-ray release, which was right at the beginning of Blu-ray becoming a thing. This out-of-print title fetches $37, $39, $44, $49, $25, $57. I believe there's been subsequent re-releases of this, but for one reason or another, the out-of-print version from 2007 is holding value. Next, we have Once Upon a Time in America. This is a movie from the mid-80s. It's kind of like The Godfather, but like the cult classic version of that most people haven't seen. If you haven't checked it out yet, definitely do that. You can see a regular copy of it sold for $26, $62, $74, $57, $46. This one is pretty rare. I've actually been able to find this one out in the wild. I got this copy from Facebook Marketplace. This is the collector's edition, but it has the same Blu-ray as the titles that we're seeing right now on eBay. So the disc itself is pretty valuable. This collector's edition is worth roughly $100 based on recently sold eBay comps. But if you see a copy of the limited edition like this, grab it. The Adventures of Ford Fairlane, a comedy from the early 90s starring comedian Andrew Dice Clay, who you probably have forgotten existed. Well, not everybody has. This Blu-ray was released as recently as 2015 and fetches a pretty penny on eBay. We can see one here at $75, $53, $50, and $53. It's a notoriously awful movie that turns out to be fairly valuable. Next, we have Simply Irresistible. This is a romantic comedy from the late 90s starring Sarah Michelle Gellar, aka Buffy the Vampire Slayer. I've actually never seen this, although I wouldn't mind. I enjoy Sarah Michelle Gellar in general, especially this era's version of Sarah Michelle Gellar. There's not too many examples of what this is worth because it's pretty rare. We've just got this one comp sold on best offer, and the asking price was $74. So not sure exactly what it's sold for. The point is, if you see this on the shelf, it's rare. Grab it, throw it on eBay. Next up, a movie from the mid-70s that saw Blu-ray release in 2013. This is a comedy action classic starring Richard Pryor and Gene Wilder. It's Silver Streak. You can see one recently sold on auction for $40, another pre-owned for $57, and another pre-owned for $54. If you've never seen Silver Streak, check it out, and if you see it out in the wild, grab it. Here's one that is definitely surprisingly valuable. It's Spy Kids 3D Game Over and the Adventures of Shark Boy and Lava Girl 3D. These are Robert Rodriguez kids movies. I had definitely aged out of this genre by the time this was released, but I'm sure some of you remember these movies very well. These are well out of print. Here's one that sold on auction for $85. Another that sold brand new for $150, $129, $129, $99, $128. I think 3D 2-packs are pretty rare. I'm guessing why the value on this one is fairly high, but I find 3D titles at pawn shops and thrift stores all the time. So I imagine eventually possible that I could find this one as well. I'm going to keep an eye out for it. Next, we've got another Kevin Smith comedy. This is Jersey Girl. The movie was released in 2004, the Blu-ray in 2015. Another one that only has one recently sold comp. This one went for $79. Definitely not one of Kevin Smith's best movies, but certainly one that is surprisingly valuable. Next, we've got Bad Girls from 1994 that saw Blu-ray release in 2012 from Anchor Bay. This is a Western that starred a bunch of actresses from the time. Young Guns, which was kind of the Western male equivalent of this one, did very well at the box office, so they decided to make a female-centric version of it. I don't think this one did quite as well, but it's since gotten a little bit of a cult following. We can see on eBay recently a copy went for $69, another one for $59. Not a great movie, but definitely one that still has value on Blu-ray. Next, we've got Down to You, a Julia Stiles, Freddie Prinze Jr. romantic comedy. It was released in major brick and mortar stores. Julia Stiles, one of my favorite actresses. There's only 2 comps on eBay for this one. One was a best offer with a starting price of $59, and another sold on auction, brand new, for $55. I'm on the hunt for this one. If you see it, pick it up for me. Monkey Bone, another early 2000s movie that saw Blu-ray release in 2012 from Anchor Bay. It's a wacky Brendan Fraser movie. Recently one sold for brand new at $107, $69, and $65. This one definitely has a cult following, so if you find it and decide to resell it, price it high, I'm willing to bet it's rare enough that you'll eventually find the right buyer. Another Peter Jackson movie. This is from his horror era. This is an early 90s movie that saw Blu-ray release in 2011. This is one of the few Peter Jackson movies I've never seen. I'll have to remedy that soon. You can see it recently sold for $79, $100, $144, $135, $75, $92. You get the point. If you see this one out there, grab it. If you're a fan, you got it at a great price. And if you're not, throw it on eBay and use the proceeds to buy some titles you'd rather have in your collection. We're almost there, just 2 more.
It might be a tumor.
It's not a tumor.
And here we go with Free Willy. This is an early 90s movie that saw release in 2015 from Warner Brothers. For some reason or another, this one is very rare. Here's a copy that sold for $65, $78. Here's one that sold on best offer, starting price $159. I'm willing to bet they got somewhere between $60 and $80 for it, somewhere in there. This is one of the few kids movies I know of that for some reason has not only held its value, but has actually gone through the roof. I'm sure part of that is the nostalgia people have for the time, and also that they just, I guess, printed too little. Who knows? Either way, if you see Free Willy out there, pick it up. And finally, Bedazzled, another Brendan Fraser comedy, this one starring opposite Elizabeth Hurley, released in the year 2000 with Blu-ray release in 2013. I love this movie. I would love to find it out in the wild. I would probably keep it were that to happen. Copies of this title sell on eBay for $55, $65, $105. On auction. Someone really wanted that one. $70, $45, $103, $59, $89. I mean, I love this movie, but now that I think about it, were I to find it in the wild, I might have to resell it. I mean, come on. That is a crazy amount of money for this movie. Sometimes I just don't understand it. So that's it. That's 25 more valuable Blu-ray titles you might actually be able to find out in the wild. I hope you enjoyed that and possibly learned something along the way. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell for more videos like this. I'm sure we'll do it again in the future. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time. Until then, bye.